All right, this is the March 21st, 2023 meeting of the Flood and Erosion Control Board. I'm going to go around and ask everyone who's present to please say their names for the record. This is Becky Bunnell, Chair.
Yeah, Don Lamberti.
I'm Dick Mahusky, I'm Secretary.
Prue O'Brien, Recording Secretary. And Peter.
Peter Wiswell, member.
All right. So we will go ahead and start the meeting. Thank you very much. Our first item is to hear, consider, and act upon the minutes. However, we're going to defer this to next month because we did feed in comments, but we don't have a revised set of minutes available for everyone to review. So we're going to defer this February minutes approval to next month. So the next agenda item is discussion on the evolving plans for Penfield Pavilion. And I believe Dick has a motion that he would like to put forward that we would send to the RTM members.
Yeah, I sent this around earlier by email, so you get a chance to
I read it, yeah.
preview it. Yeah. So I spoke at both the Board of Selectmen meeting and the Board of Finance meeting just to kind of give my personal support to approving this project. I did not speak on behalf of Flood and Erosion. Becky spoke at the Board of Finance meeting, and Jim Walsh asked her whether she was speaking as herself or on behalf of Flood and Erosion, and she said she's speaking as herself. So I just thought it would be beneficial to go on record with what our board feels about this motion that will be in front of the RTM. So,
what is the motion?
Well, to be clear, I did actually state when I was speaking on behalf of Flood and Erosion. For example, I referenced the November 22nd letter that we wrote and read out pieces of that into the minutes.
Right.
And I said, in this case, I'm speaking on behalf of Flood and Erosion, and then I would reference when I was speaking on behalf of myself.
Okay.
But that may not have been clearly understood.
Yeah, and I also to the at the Board of Selectmen, I believe, I mentioned that letter that we sent, and I included excerpts from that letter. But maybe it goes in one ear and out the other. That's why
it was also sent back in November.
Yeah, I felt compelled to basically repeat that I talked at the Board of Selectmen at the Board of Finance, and now I feel compelled to repeat for the RTM that, hey, we have an oar in this water and we want this to go forward because never before have we had such a chance to provide mitigation at the Penfield site. We've got $100,000 earmarked in there. So my proposed text that someone will go to the meeting and read. Good evening, I'm Dick Mahusky, Secretary of the Flood and Erosion Control Board. At our meeting this Tuesday, we voted, and I don't know whether to say unanimously or not, that remains to be seen. We voted to share these thoughts with you. If you recall, last November, we sent you a copy of our letter to Tom Bremer, recognizing and supporting the administration's inclusion of a flood mitigation component in their plan for the Penfield site. Our board is agnostic about the existence of the pavilion structure per se. We recognize the current plan increases the effects of coastal storm surge on residences beyond the beach by lowering the sand level beneath the structure. We appreciate the Board of Finance including a specific $100,000 appropriation for a flood mitigation measure at the site in the motion now before you. The Flood and Erosion Control Board believes we can work with the administration to develop a plan that would be approved by DEEP, FEMA, and the Army Corps of Engineers, concurrent with the work at the pavilion site. And yes, we will come before the boards justifying and seeking funding for that task once it is developed and costed out. We believe clearing the NO notice of violation and remediating the contamination is job number one, and that time is of the essence. We urge you to approve funding those actions tonight. Thank you.
Okay, I have two suggested edits.
Okay.
I have one.
The first one is in the fourth paragraph down. We appreciate, instead of flood mitigation measure, I'd like to say flood mitigation study.
Okay.
And then at the end of that, the last sentence of that same paragraph, we will come before the boards justifying and seeking improvement for the implementation of that study once it is developed and costed out.
Wait, say that again.
The last sentence of
But
that
yes,
same
we
paragraph.
will come before the boards.
Justifying and seeking funding for the implementation for that study once it is developed and costed out, or implementation costs for the mitigation plan, maybe, once it is developed and costed out.
I don't
way you
want
wanna
to
frame
use,
that.
I don't want to use the word study there because we've already got the $100,000 for the study.
Okay, the implementation costs for
study,
the
yeah.
mitigation plan once it is developed and costed out. Or whatever you, the idea is that we
want to put plan here?
wanna have, the first one's a study.
Sorry.
This is actually correct. He doesn't want to use study down here.
Okay.
What I think we want to say is we're going to come back to them with a recommendation to spend money to implement whatever
Right.
plan is approved.
Yeah, because I want to tell them right up front, hey, this is the study, then we're going to have to do
The
work.
implementation part,
So,
yeah.
And yes, we will come before the boards justifying and seeking funding for the implementation of the plan once it is developed and costed out.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Okay? All right, Don?
Just the fourth paragraph, our board is, I don't like the word agnostic. I can almost see if you cross out the first sentence, say,
Ambivalent?
I say recognize the current plan increases the effects of coastal storm surge on residences beyond the.
Wait, what, are we talking about the word agnostic or the second sentence?
I would like to just get rid of that first sentence, and it can extend at the very end, say, lowering the sand level beneath the structure, and we are committed committed for a plan to protect the citizens, we are.
Don, excuse me. Don, did I understand you correctly? Paragraph 3, remove that first sentence that has agnostic in it?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, absolutely. That was going to be my comment. That is not our brief.
That's correct.
I think that's gratuitous and is looking.
Well, that's what I'm trying to imply, that's not our brief, that we don't have any comments about the structure per se, whether it's there or not there.
I don't think agnostic. It might be a different word then, but I think you would do better just, if I'm understanding Don correctly, you would do better to just leave that sentence out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was useful to state that we don't care if there's a tiny pavilion there, a huge pavilion there, a pavilion twice the size it is today, or nothing at all, just the locker room. We don't care. I mean,
but
this board doesn't care.
Is our position that we don't care, or that we are stating that is not our brief? And I think it's very different.
I think the point is, I agree with Peter. You make a good point that I think we're all saying the same thing, that whether or not there's a pavilion there or a deck or whatever is not our brief. Our brief is
Correct.
to look at flood and erosion impacts on the neighborhood behind there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I think, is there a different way you can frame this that's more clear for people who aren't as close to it as you are, Dick? You're very close to this, so to you this makes sense, but to people who are not quite as close.
Well then, Becky, may I put suggest a postscript on that? It says, we recognize the current plan increases the effects of coastal storm surge on residences beyond the beach by lowering the sand level beneath the structure. Should that be followed by comma? And I'm not quite sure what the words are after that, mindful of the comment about 10 minutes ago about study. Do you want to leave it hanging at, we understand that the sand level is going to be lowered, should you say beneath the structure, comma, which warrants further review or something like that, just to take the edge off it a little bit?
I would say, but we are committed to coming up with plans to defend the property.
I'm not quite sure.
We'll strike the first sentence.
Yeah.
And then say, we recognize the current plan increases the effects of coastal storm surge on residences beyond the beach by lowering the sand level beneath the structure.
Yeah.
Our objective
that doesn't sound right.
I'm okay with that.
Let me work on the end of this paragraph. Our objective is to provide an installation means to provide protection. Or measures, or how many times are we using? Yeah.
Provide protection.
To provide measures that will, did I use mitigate? Mitigate these effects.
Measures that defend against storm structure.
Or how about maximize protection? I'll defer to whatever the consensus is on that, but I think it might not be a bad idea to have a little postscript in there to make it look like we're not completely heartless.
Yeah. All right, so third paragraph. We recognize the current plan increases the effects of coastal storm surge on residences beyond the beach by lowering the sand level beneath the structure. Our objective is to provide measures that will mitigate these effects.
Yes, sounds good. I like that.
Yeah, and because then you go on to say, we appreciate them funding the study, and we're going to be coming back to you and asking for implementation funds later,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry to belabor it, but what were the first two words of your proposed last sentence? Our
objective is to provide measures that will mitigate these effects.
How about if you use the word maximize instead? Maximize the protections afforded to the beach, something like that, which is very nebulous, but it makes it look like I'm sorry to sound like an attorney, but just maximize the protections afforded the beach, or it'd be pointing in the right direction, because by saying lowering the sand level, aren't people going to say, wait a second, you guys are supposed to raise the sand level? Not that there's any connection there, but don't we want to avoid that notion?
How about this? We recognize the current plan increases the effects of coastal storm surge on residences beyond the beach by lowering the sand level beneath the structure. Our objective is to provide measures that will maximize flood protection.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Just
I like it. Yes.
Okay. Let me read it through one last time. Good. What? No, you don't have to write this down.
He's going to give you a clean copy.
I don't need a clean copy. It's not going to go in the minute. The letter is not.
Well, this is not a letter. This is just the text for a verbal presentation. I'm not saying. Well, I could.
It's your script.
I could email it to
and
them.
then read it again.
Yeah, and
read
then
it for the record.
Then I'll just read what I sent.
Yeah, I
okay.
think we should do that.
Good evening, I'm Dick Mahusky, Secretary of Flood and Erosion Control Board. At our meeting this Tuesday, we voted unanimously.
Well, we will in a minute.
We voted to share these thoughts with you. If you recall, last November, we sent you a copy of our letter to Tom Bremer, recognizing and supporting the administration's inclusion of a flood mitigation component in their plan for the Penfield site. We recognize the current plan increases the effects of coastal storm surge on residences beyond the beach by lowering the sand level beneath the structure. Our objective is to provide measures that will maximize flood protection. We appreciate the Board of Finance including a specific $100,000 appropriation for a flood mitigation study at the site in the motion now before you. The Flood and Erosion Control Board believes we can work with the administration to develop a plan that would be approved by the DEEP and FEMA and Army Corps of Engineers, concurrent with the work at the pavilion site. And yes, we will come before the boards justifying and seeking funding for the implementation of the plan. And cost up. I can't follow my own insertions here. Justifying and seeking funding for the implementation of the plan once it is developed and costed out. We believe clearing the NOV and remediating the contamination is job number one, and that time is of the essence. We urge you to approve funding those actions tonight. Thank you.
Just a question here. Do we really think it's possible to make FEMA and Army Corps of Engineers happy?
Well, we have to. We have to. For
we
whatever,
have to keep going until we find a plan that works.
We have to get permits. We can't just go and build a wall.
I mean, I'm not 100% sure Army Corps needs to approve this.
I say we go, but I'm not sure we'll get anything.
I'm not 100% sure.
Many times, deep, like the tide gates, Army Corps and
Army Corps is doing those. Yeah.
Army Corps has this
they have
914 thing where they get. I think
they get it if it's in wetlands, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
But let's say and let's leave it all in.
And Army Corps of Engineers and anyone else who has a stick to beat us with.
Yeah. All right. So
I'm not convinced it's possible. I think we should try. But
well, our goal is to do it.
Our goal is to do it. I'm not sure it's plausible.
I think they'll approve something. They'll approve something.
Plausible.
It may be plantings, but they will approve something.
Something has to be.
So with these edits, can I hear a motion to approve this revised text?
Motion to approve the text as revised.
I second. Are there any other comments before we vote?
Not
All
here.
in favor, say aye.
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 So it is unanimous.
So it's unanimous. So you can now say unanimous.
Are you gonna go? You want to?
I'll probably go as well.
Okay, so you should.
Oh, you can do this. You can do it. I'm happy. I don't need to do it.
Is that the same night as is that Monday night, the 27th?
Monday the 27th.
This
Monday the 27th.
Thursday.
RTM?
I don't think so. It's Monday the 27th.
No, there's a special RTM meeting this Thursday.
Oh, for Penfield?
Oh, really?
Yes.
Monday night is the...
Monday is their regular meeting.
I thought it was the 27th. It was noted
in the newspaper article, which is wrong.
So it's Thursday. Okay, that's important to know because I would have gone Monday. So Thursday is the 23rd. Being 2 days from now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We don't need to know that now. I think let's make sure that we do know that. I will go back and look that up. All right. Are there any other items to discuss on Penfield?
No, special meeting. It's a special meeting just for that.
Ah. And this is, I'm glad you said that. I had been reading Monday. I swear to God I read Monday the 27th.
Well, it was in that news article about about the Board of Finance meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all right, so I will go Thursday now. I hope I...
Okay, thank you. So I'm going.
So the only other comment I had...
I will email it to the entire RTM. You think I should copy anybody else on this or just email it to the RTM members and that's it? And we have copied Bremer. We've copied
BOS and Board of Finance. We've copied all of the boards.
So maybe we should just copy the other two, send it to the RTM and copy the other two just so they are aware. Okay. So I will email that tomorrow and then I'll go and give it.
Okay. And I will be there as well, just because it's been a while since I've been to an RTM meeting. Other items on Penfield, I was put aback, should I say, by the plan that Dick forwarded to me that is apparently the plan that was put in front of FEMA that was dated 11/11, which has the 8-foot beach elevation extending it looks like roughly 20 to 25 feet in beach side of the pavilion, as opposed to the 8 foot just being under the pavilion, which was,
This whole green
a surprise to me, because I had thought that
You'll be
FEMA
scared.
only mandated the 8 feet underneath the building. So why would we arbitrarily allow the 8 feet to go into an area which had sand that was in the 9 foot level? FEMA themselves said that underneath the building was 8 to 9 feet. And they would, what I heard them say in the meeting is they just wanted us to recreate the sand levels that were in the LiDAR, which would have allowed 9 feet to be in front of the building. So why is it that we would have submitted a town plan that took the elevation of the beach down to 8 feet when we didn't need to? I'm very confused and sort of surprised, because we actually had a meeting with Tom Bremer before this plan. If this was dated 11/11, I believe our meeting with Tom Bremer was before that, and we asked specifically for us not to lower any beach elevations that didn't need to be lowered. So it is a surprise to me that this plan was what was submitted to FEMA. Maybe this was submitted prior to our meeting, and this updated plan shows 11/11 for some reason. I don't know, but I don't know if there's any ability to change that at this time, but I am very concerned about the flood implications of this plan.
This is insanity.
I'm very concerned about the flood implications of
Well,
this plan.
I mean, in order to understand how that came about, I think one would have to be in the conversation that Tom Bremer and Eli were having with the folks from FEMA to present, hey, this is our plan, is this okay?
But was another plan presented which had the 9 foot elevation, and FEMA said,
I don't
no,
know.
you must take it down to 8
I
feet,
don't know.
20 feet out in front of the pavilion? Or did they just arbitrarily choose to take it down further than potentially was needed? It has implications for flooding, which is
Yeah,
why
it
I'm
certainly does.
making the point. And I think what I would like to do is go back with a letter to the administration asking them to submit an alternate plan that only takes down the sand elevation to 8 feet underneath the building, and then allow the rest of the sand to be at the elevation of the prior LiDAR study,
Absolutely, I agree with
which
that.
is anywhere from 8 to 9 feet, and in some cases 10 feet. There's no reason for us to arbitrarily take the sand down if FEMA doesn't mandate it, which I did not hear them say. And Jim Went even supported me in one of these meetings that his read of the FEMA request is only the sand under the building needs to be taken down to the 8 foot level. So I would like to propose that we, as a Flood and Erosion Control Board, vote on writing a letter to the administration asking them to consider submitting a slightly modified plan that takes the sand in front of the building and around the building to the LiDAR levels of 2006 and 2004, not the plan that apparently was submitted to FEMA as the final plan. Because obviously we're going to be going back to FEMA at the end of March saying, whatever gets voted at the RTM meeting, let's assume the RTM votes it through. We will go back and say all 3 of our boards have appropriated funding, and we then have the opportunity, I believe, to say, and here is the final plan we would like to do. Can we get your okay? And I'd like that plan to not have the sand elevation be at 8 foot, 20 to 30 feet out in front of the building. So can I have some discussion on that point?
I think it's excellent. We have to do something here. This is obscene.
Well, I think again, I was not in the conversation, but I think the idea is that the 8 foot sand level under the structure has to continue toward the water at that same elevation until it starts dipping down at the natural grade down to the low tide mark. And the rationale would be that they don't want a ski jump of the waves and the waters coming up and ski jumping so that they hit the pavilion structure. They want the waves and the wave run up and the waves to just continue unimpeded under the structure. Now, to me, I agree. If you had a little bump there, that would take some of the energy out of the wave run-up, and that would be better for the supports of the structure. And it's something that certainly could be discussed with them.
Well, you're making a hypothesis. When I went back, and I spent a lot of time reading all those appeals and the back and forth, and FEMA was very careful to always use 8 to 9 feet in all of their appeals.
Mm-hmm.
They always said the elevation on all of the documents you provided to us is 8 to 9 feet. And what that means is, in my mind, is that the contour lines go in and out, and sometimes it's down to 8 feet, and other times it's up to 9 feet, and that's, they are comfortable. They did not ask us anywhere in the NOV or in anything to take the elevation of the sand down below 8 to 9 feet. 8 to 9 feet was always the language they used. The reason the grade beams are at 8 feet is that you can't have grade beams go from 8 to 9 feet. You have to have grade beams go at the lowest part of that. So I get the grade beams being at 8, but the sand elevation doesn't have to be it. It should be that the natural elevation of the site before we put the artificial barrier in, which was 8 to 9 feet, according to those other studies, the LIDAR studies. So I don't think FEMA would have had a problem with 8 to 9 feet. And the contour line of 9 feet there, I don't think they would have made us go lower, because all they wanted was us to go back to the sand elevation of the LIDAR studies.
Is that 11 right there?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
how do you
11.
LIDAR,
I would
all
think-
caps.
I say it should be just 8 feet underneath the building, and our understanding was you just have to bring it to 8 feet underneath the building.
Yeah, and the
And
sand.
touch only the building.
All right, so maybe we can ask if.
We'd like them to submit a revised plan, is what we're asking.
Okay, so why don't you send that to Bremer and copy Brenda and.
The RTM?
No.
Well, I mean, the reality is, well, we're going to get to another part of the discussion later in the meeting where I would like us to opine on our board's role in terms of what it states on both the state statutes as well as our town charter, as well as in our town's website, because we have authority to plan, construct, and manage flood and erosion control structures. And this to me, that 8 to 9 foot issue is a flood mitigation structure, an erosion control structure. So if we have some authority in this, our chance to, the administration ignores us other times, why would they suddenly pay attention to us now? If we take advantage of the board could possibly put that into the resolution. So I think that's what I would, send
a letter to Tom Bremer saying, we're looking at this,
well, I don't know, do we know
plan.
that was the final
Yes,
plan approved? Okay.
Well, Eli told me that. Eli sent me this just a couple days ago.
Okay, and he said that was the final.
So
Who
this
voted
is
on
it.
that? Who voted on that?
We never saw it. It was never submitted to us.
No, this is the administration's plan that they negotiated with FEMA. I mean, I'm not trying to be an apologist for them. I'm just saying what I think would have happened. So why don't we go to Bremer and say, hey Tom, we really don't understand this. We accept with malice and prejudice that we're reducing the sand under the building to the 8 feet and the grade beam is there. But why can't the rest of the beach continue along its historical elevation up to the 11-foot line, which lies entirely outside of the structure's footprint?
Well, they'll say the 11-foot
but will give us some additional wave run-up attenuation before it hits the building.
The difference is that the 11-foot line does not appear in the 2006 LIDAR study. However, 9-foot lines do. So I think.
Well, that LIDAR study is pretty rough.
I would say clear that. Just say we want to go underneath the building to 8 feet and nothing else.
That LIDAR is pretty rough.
Well, that's what FEMA used to give their 8 to 9 foot level, is those LIDAR. That 2006, the 2004 LIDAR study, and then they did an interpretation of a different plot we gave them of some sort.
What's the accuracy of LIDAR, do you know?
Now it's actually quite good. I'm not sure what it was back in 2004, 2006.
Plus or minus a foot? Plus or minus?
Oh, no, it's centimeters. It's centimeters.
But this LIDAR sort of shows a 6-foot elevation where In this current map, it's the 8-foot elevation. So, let's go by the LiDAR and take it down. See, the 10-foot goes like between, the 10-foot goes under the building?
The 10 foot's over here, the 8 foot's here, so the 8 foot's right in front, according to this. Which LiDAR is this one?
This is the 2000, well,
Is that the 2000?
it's this. Which is, this is the example they put in one of their, denials of our,
No, that's the 2006. That is the 2006.
yeah. But this was a figure included. Because this, I got this in that email that Rick Brower wrote today.
Oh, I didn't read that.
Yeah, good.
All right, let me do this. Let me ask.
But that would be my alternate thought. Hey, we got this drawing here for whatever, from wherever it came from. This is what we're kind of using. So why not just let the natural beach be what it is up to this 11 foot?
I'd be happy to have the 11 foot.
And then we'll have a
I'm not
ski
sure
jump,
that they'll approve that.
and we can plant
I think we do
from the
planting.
8-foot level up to the 11-foot
With a
level with
boardwalk.
some crossover, with some boardwalks. We can plant beach grass there to
Right.
stabilize the little
Right.
junior dune.
Well, the other thing that we could do is this could be one of the plans that we show as part of the study when we go talk to FEMA and DEEP. Say that, we're taking the plan that was presented to you. We want to keep that 11 foot. We want to do some walkways over it and some plantings, a living shoreline approach.
Yeah. A couple of bushes with berries for the
that is
birds.
one of our flood mitigation efforts. And then we want to do another one behind. But
For
we
the
have.
big storms.
Yeah, for the bigger storms, but this would stop the smaller storms.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy to do that then, if that's maybe the way to do it, is to go back.
Go back to Bremer and copy Brenda. I don't know if we want to.
I mean, once we go back to FEMA and say we have the money and the plan is approved, we have to live with that plan. That's my concern.
That's for sure.
Not unless we say we're going to develop the skeletal plan that you and I have agreed on, and we'll be in constant communication.
Well, if we say that to FEMA, that'd be one thing, and just say that, we reserve the right to come back and explore living shoreline options that allow us to keep some of the contour lines. If that is the language that we go back to FEMA with, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
but if we go back to FEMA and say we're approving the plan that that we sent you.
So then that should.
Then we're locked into an 8 foot.
Yeah, I agree with that. That should be our cautionary comment to the administration.
Has this actually been presented to FEMA?
Yes.
Apparently back in November
November?
as our final plan. We were never consulted. Or actually, we did see a version of this, and we actually made the same comment we're making in today's meeting, which is we had some concerns.
So I would say write Bremer that letter, saying don't just roll over on the preliminary skeletal project that we submitted, but let's talk about this a little bit.
So is the board comfortable with me writing a letter to that, and did they want to see it before I write it?
No,
What are you gonna say?
I'm basically going to say we have some concerns. We continue to have concerns with the plan that was presented to FEMA, in that it implies that roughly 20 to 30 feet beach side of the pavilion, you're going to be taking the grade all the way down to 8 feet, when it is our understanding that FEMA is only requesting that 8 feet be the level underneath the building itself. And we would very much like any approval that goes to FEMA to say that we will be exploring the elevations around the building as a way to mitigate flood mitigation. So we are, the plan that we are proposing to FEMA only shows an 8 foot elevation under the building itself, as opposed to the submission, the implied submission that was given to them back in November. and
Yeah.
just see what FEMA says. And FEMA could say,
Yeah, right.
no, we don't support that. Or FEMA could say, okay, that seems interesting. If you could do some living shoreline ideas, that sounds like something we might be interested in looking at. But I want to open the door
Okay.
to being able to come back to them with some options that have a higher elevation and plantings.
So I make a motion that you write that email letter to Tom Bremer, copy the first select woman so that the administration knows what we're doing. Whether you want to copy everybody and their brother, I don't know. I think at this point, I don't know that will be helpful. There's enough comments out there that are muddying this water with all kinds of how about this, how about that.
But we're the board that is responsible for mitigating flooding and erosion. The people who are residents of the town who are making comments are welcome to give comments, but that's our remit, is to protect our neighborhoods from flooding and erosion. That is our remit. That is what we are being asked to do when we chose to sit on this board. So I think we have a different level of responsibility than a resident. That's all I'm saying. All right, so.
I mean, the flood and erosion, I'm going back to what we approved to present to them, to the RTM. The Flood and Erosion Control Board believes we can work with the administration to develop a plan that would be approved by DEEP and FEMA concurrent with the work of the, and yes, we'll go above. But we're going to work with the administration to develop a plan. And there's no limit that this plan can't start to be incorporated in.
All I'm saying is that whatever we say to FEMA, I would like them to keep the door open to look at elevations outside of the building.
Yes.
So that when we go back to FEMA, assuming we get approval of all of the, through all the boards, that when we go back to FEMA, we don't just say, please rubber stamp the plan we sent you. But we say, we want to look at variations of the plan we sent you that possibly would look at living shoreline or other natural-based solutions in front of the pavilion such that the elevation would stay where it was in the previous studies. And I want that in writing to FEMA when we give them our okay, because that then keeps the door open for us to come back to them. Otherwise, they could just say, you gave us a plan, we're holding you to it.
Yeah.
They could. And they'd be in their rights to say it because the town gave them a plan. It wasn't approved by the Flood and Erosion Control Board, but the town gave them a plan.
But this plan is so skeletal.
But it
I know.
It says what it says. It says 8 feet, 30 feet in front of.
This green area is lowered to 8 feet.
It says 30 feet in front of the building. It's going to go to 8 feet.
So
it does say exactly that.
I would make a motion that you write a letter email to Tom Bremer, just saying what we've been discussing here. That now that we got a clear-eyed look at
Well, we made the same comment when they showed us something like this in November.
Yeah.
And we made the same comment back then.
I kind of remember that.
Yeah.
So just, this is, we see no reason that the 8 foot has to extend beyond
the building itself.
Yeah. And looking at the drawing, we think that that your future communications with FEMA should
reflect the fact
that the 11-foot line is there.
That we reserve, that we would, and actually I'd prefer they provide us another plan that just shows 8 feet under the building.
Yeah.
That's my preference. But if he still feels like he needs to keep with this, I'd like at least a qualifier put in.
Yeah. So I make a motion that you do that, and.
Hey, I second the motion.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments, Peter?
No, I'm comfortable.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
All right. Anything else with Penfield? Oh, the only other thing I would comment on Penfield, and we'll get to this in the review, the status of the other projects, but just since we're on Penfield, one of the things we discussed with Bill Hurley is how we should bid out or what we should do with the study. And the discussion we had with Bill Hurley is to go ahead and give this to Race since as an addendum to the RFQ that has already been approved for the other Penfield projects as an addendum, as opposed to bidding it out. And the rationale for that is that in the original, I don't know if they've actually retained, they have a approved bid from Race to do the structural engineering and flood assessment, which basically means they're going to do all of the wave run up and all of the structural loads on the structure itself, and they're going to basically model out all of the wave actions and stuff. So they will have done all of the hydrodynamic work to really understand what forces will be on the beach itself and on the building itself. It doesn't make any sense to pay another firm to go back and redo all that work when we're already paying for that once. So,
absolutely.
So I'm very comfortable awarding this 100,000 study to Race as an addendum. But I just wanted to make sure the board didn't.
Yeah, and Race has an historical background on our coast. I mean, they did the engineered beaches studies for all the beaches.
And they did the 6 original mitigation studies in 2016.
Yeah.
So they already have explored some of the options. So it makes sense to go to them, but I didn't want to, if people feel strongly that we want a different point of view, I certainly wouldn't.
No, I would think we
good.
just support Bill's intention of just getting them to stab this on.
Peter, any concerns from your side, or are you cool with that?
I'm comfortable with it.
With an 8-foot elevation, or with the?
Well, I think we need to have that. Well, the first thing I'm going to tell them is to model it.
What are they modeling?
That's a really good question. I think when we have our kickoff meeting with Race, I think we need to describe that we want to actually look at that as one of our options. So they need to think about their modeling both ways, probably.
Okay. Yeah.
Becky, what was that comment Don had?
He said when Race does their hydrodynamic analysis and their wave run-ups and heights and stuff like that and on the structure, are they going to do that with an 8-foot elevation 30 feet in front of the building? Or are they going to do it with the possibility of a small planted living shoreline dune in front?
Oh, interesting point. Yes.
And actually, that would be interesting for them to do it both ways, because it would help understand the value that a dune would bring at various storm levels.
Yeah.
All right. So I think if there's nothing further on Penfield Pavilion, let's go to the next agenda item, which is reviewing the status of all of the other items on the flood and erosion project list. So I'm just going to run down them quickly. We had a meeting with Bill yesterday.
Yes.
So the first item was one of the ARPA-funded project, Perry's Green. I think we'd mentioned last time that we had gotten a pushback from DEEP on some of the contours of the way the wall went. Some of it was too far away from the prior wall. It was 18 inches. So they resubmitted that, and now they're going for a COP, which is a 90-day review period, which means we might hear an approval as early as the June time period. We could potentially be looking at a fall 2023 construction, which would be great. We did put a request in to submit the plans to the stakeholders because they had a kickoff meeting and they said they'd get back to people, and that was 7 months ago, I think, or whatever. So it's been a while, and I think some of the stakeholders, like the Historic Preservation Commission and stuff, we just need to make sure that they're in the loop before we get too far along, I think. So I hope.
I think Bill accepted that as
I think he will do that.
He's going to have Megan.
I think he will do that. The next was an ARPA project on Rooster River. DEEP had come back on that one with some issues about some of the wetlands, so we have to provide 3-to-1 alternate wetlands that we are going to provide for the wetlands that we quote-unquote take away. However, the issue on this one is that we do need Army Corps approval, and they are very backed up. They're very short-staffed, and they're not even going to be looking at it till the fall. So it's crazy.
Like,
so we're on hold till the fall.
Hurry up and wait.
Waiting for the Army Corps to be able to fit it into their project list, because we're pretty far down the list if we're not even being.
So what's the Army Corps going to consider? What are they thinking about?
They just look at the plan and have to give their sign-off.
Okay. No.
So DEEP has already, pushed us back once, and we've addressed DEEP's issue. So now Army Corps, they could have their own issues, and we might have to address those, and then we'd have to go back to DEEP. So this whole thing can spiral, and the scary thing is this is ARPA funds. And
right.
ARPA funds
so the
have
ARPA
to be
funds
spent
are gonna
by 2024.
Give out, or they're going to time out, not give
yes.
out.
Then we asked about the various different projects that RACE is working on. They were doing a study on the beach club, which was approved in last year's budget. That is currently on hold still while we wait for the town. The town prefers that they set up the meeting with the beach club, although I think they said, you know, let's just wait till
They're
after
waiting until the Penfield
thing has been
calmed
resolved,
down.
and then potentially Fund Erosion can go ahead and set that meeting up just to understand any issues the beach club might have. Let's see, all the other race projects along the shoreline are also on hold until Penfield gets resolved. The GZA was the firm doing the benefit cost analysis on 3 sections of our beach, and what they're coming back with right now is that we are not seeing positive cost-benefit analysis when you do the plan in sections. The Army Corps did it all as one big, long barrier, so there was no way for the water to kind of come around the side, but when you just look at one little section and you don't do the next section down, the water comes around, and so it doesn't give you a positive cost benefit. So having a firm do a segment-by-segment plan is never going to look good. So we have to really step back and do a master plan again with the different segments, and then do the cost benefit on that, and then try to get funding for each of the pieces.
Yeah, and try to get people to recognize and accept that this isn't going to be done all at once, but we do the big hole first, and the next big hole second, and the third big hole third.
Right.
And just try and.
But the challenge will be that we have to do those holes in a way that allows us to potentially get grant money, and the grant money needs a positive cost benefit. So we have to figure out how
If you have
that's
an
going to
8-foot
work.
hole in Penfield, nothing's gonna look good.
That water's coming right in.
That's right. No, but what's the elevation of the Fairfield Beach Club? Is that 8 foot too?
I
It's like
think that's
10,
9.5 or
9 or
something.
10.
Is it up there high?
Yeah.
9 or 10. There might be one 8-foot section along there.
And that was the worst part until Penfield gets adjusted.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sorry, what is this plan that we're talking about? Which one?
So we're going to have, we did a master plan back in 2015 that looked at the whole coastline. Army Corps did a master plan in 2019 that looked at the whole coastline. But the problem is there's a lot that costs a lot.
Okay.
So we were trying to take segments and see if we could get a positive cost benefit on just segments at a time, so we could apply for a grant.
Mhm.
And what we're-
450 million or something to defend the whole town?
546.
500.
And
That's all.
that was the Army.
But with the proviso that they didn't think it would get approved when it went down to Washington, because the
It was only a
CBA was like
1.7.
1.7, and when it gets to Washington, other
plans
jobs
are
throughout the
3.2.
country, yeah, are 3 or 4 or something,
Right.
so.
So even though it was a positive cost benefit, it still may not have gotten approved. The next project is the ARPA high intensity wave action study. We had asked to see the RFP before that went out so we could make comments. It still has not been done. Other priorities keep kicking that back. So we're now hoping that we'll see something in April. The downtown green infrastructure, do with any stormwater systems to channel water. There's not a lot of room for things like bioswales, but maybe there is some small ones we can do. It's just that the sidewalks are too close to the road. There's just no space to have any kind of real detention other than what we have. So we're still looking at some small fixes to stormwater, channeling stormwater systems slightly differently. The Tidegate RFP was supposed to be posted possibly today or this week. I don't know, prove me.
I haven't heard of that. Mm-mm.
The Tidegate RFP hasn't come
I didn't
in
do it. Maybe Lee's doing it.
Okay.
Is Lee like L-E-A-H or L-E-E?
L-E-E. Mm-hmm. Lee Flaherty.
What are their pronouns?
Her.
Okay, thank you. See how good I'm getting?
You are
this
good.
woke
Look at you.
stuff.
Look and listen to you.
Like, you could have asked me a question, I would have said, well, she hasn't, or she has, and it's her project.
And so nowadays, I still read things that say his, her. Why not just use the word their, T-H-E-I-R?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, cause every time I see that now, I say, oh, that's like archaic.
You don't need it his, her anymore. Because that's very binary.
Yeah,
What about-
exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's old school.
Yeah.
You're a guy or you're a gal with different attributes assumed. You're not just a person. So, I don't know.
The next one was the
That's the
underpass
woke
study.
content of our meeting.
Basically, there was a meeting, that many people attended and fed in comments. They, are incorporating those, and they'll be coming back to us in, May with the next phase of that project. That was underpass study.
Oh, thank you.
The next one is engineered beaches. So we're basically doing this in two phases. The 4 of our 5 beaches, with the exception of Penfield, have all been approved by DEEP and the powers that be. The profiles have been approved. So we're going to be going and doing the surveys in April and any sand moving to get the beaches back to those surveys, hopefully in April or May, so we can demonstrate that we have indeed been maintaining the beaches to that profile. And then we will get approval and seek approval for the Penfield beaches after the remediation has been done. Option of the general permit allowing you to have temporary dunes 30 days before a major storm is coming in, and how we would be able to have enough sand on site to do that. And we didn't really come up with a action plan on that necessarily. So that is an open item that we will discuss. So the Dick found a notation in the general permit that is very clear that towns are able to
Pile sand. When the storm is coming, you can pile sand on your beach to keep the storm waters from going past that temporary sand dune. But then you have to, after the storm goes by, you have to restore the original grade of the beach within 7 days or 10 days or something like that. So it's a general permit. In other words, you don't have to say, Mother, may I? You
don't have to ask
just
DEEP
do
or
it.
anyone.
You take your photographs, you document what you did, and then you report on what you did after the fact.
So the sand has to be on the site somewhere so you can make the dune. So we would have to figure out where we're going to take the sand in order to make the dune. So we just need to do an analysis of where to take sand.
Got a lot of dirt at the town dump, don't we?
Well, I think it has to be on the, I think the way it was framed is it has to be on the site. So,
Don't touch it.
So we just need to have, and that's one of the things we can ask Race to think about for Penfield too, which is 30 days before a Sandy, or 4 days before a Sandy, if we know Sandy's coming, we can put up a 5-foot dune, if we have the sand to do it.
So we
Becky?
Yes, Peter.
Yeah.
Hey, Becky, what constitutes the site? And is there a way that sand can be used for public and private? And the simple answer to that might be that there's too much private to be able to be very effective. So putting the private aside and thinking about the source of the sand, how about the Southport Harbor sands? Might it be better to inventory it somewhere in anticipation to protect the public spaces?
So we did talk about that, and the Southport Harbor sand, we would have to approach our Army Corps of Engineers is doing that on their nickel. So this is basically being paid for by the Army Corps of Engineers, and they've already made a plan to take that sand and dump it on the oyster beds to revitalize the oyster beds. We would have to go to Army Corps and ask them, could we have you dump it into one of our dump trucks that we could cart somewhere else instead, and would you be open to that? Which is something we are going to approach the Harbor Commission to ask that. There is a concern that, it's taken a while for Army Corps to get to this project, and they don't want to rock the boat, so they may have a concern that us even just putting a call into Army Corps could be too much of a boat rock. Apparently it takes years to get this dredging equipment. There's a year-long, multi-year wait to get this, and there's many places along the shore that are waiting for the dredging equipment. And we're scheduled for 2024. So that's when it's scheduled to be done. So they don't want to rock that boat, but I don't know that it would be the worst thing in the world to just put a call into the Army Corps and just say, hey, we don't want to change any dates, but would you be open to? So we have to ask the Harbor Commission, though, because that's their project.
Right.
Hey, Becky, I should remember, I don't, but was the Corps going to put the sand on barges and then take it straight offshore, or were they going
Correct.
to take it the harbor?
No, barges and straight
back.
offshore.
They're going straight offshore?
Yeah. They're just going to basically tow the barge offshore and then dump it. I guess it's a kind of barge that
Clamshell bottom on the barge.
Yeah, they pull a lever and, well, no, maybe not. It may be old-fashioned and they use a crane to offload it, but most of them, just the bottom opens up and it gets dumped.
That's what we think it is, yes.
The alternative would be they could take it out to the mouth of the harbor and they bring it over to Sasco Beach, and that's where you inventory it. Anyway,
that's one of the things we'll ask them for about, yeah, because I mean that would be an easy thing for them to tow the barge over there and just dump it on Sasco Beach.
So we need to have a discussion with the Harbor Management Commission. That's the first step.
So the idea is is the Harbor Management Commission open to us negotiating with Army Corps, and then we can talk to Army Corps and see what they're able to do.
Yeah, Becky, just as a final side point, if they bring it offshore and put it on the oyster beds, those are probably oyster beds that are privately farmed, and isn't that a breach of the public-private issue, where if they get dumped it on Sasco Beach, it remains in the public sector?
Well, we don't know.
It's good. It's a good point. We'll bring that up when we talk to the Harbor Commission.
Okay. Yep. Enough said. Thank you.
And I think they're actually state-owned lands that are leased by oyster people, so they're dumping it on a state-owned land that happens to be leased, and they're getting the permission of the lessee, is my guess. But
try telling the oyster fisherman whose family's had that lease for 150 years that he doesn't own it.
True. Good point. He thinks he owns it. All right. Any other items on the project list? Did I miss any?
Yeah, I just as information, I brought up the old Post Road Bridge.
Oh yeah.
For
that out.
For Mr. Did I send it out to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So that's all. So you know what I know about it. It's silting up. The bridge is collapsing. Another wonderful 75-year-old piece of infrastructure.
Is it historical?
Oh God, I hope not. It is stone. It's not welded.
All right. So the last agenda item is any additional business that may properly come before the board. And I just have one issue that I wanted to just get opinions from the board. I'm going to read the language that is in the town. This is right off the town website about what the remit of the Flood and Erosion Control Board is. The Flood and Erosion Control Board plans, constructs, reconstructs, and manages the town's flood and erosion control system, which includes dikes, berms, dams, piping, jetties, seawalls, embankments, tide gates, revetments, water storage areas, ditches, drains, and any other structures or facilities that prevent damage from flood or erosion caused by seawater or fresh water. Duties include having authority within appropriation limits to plan, lay out, acquire, construct, reconstruct, repair, maintain, supervise, and manage a flood or erosion control system. So with that said, I am concerned that we are being shut out of the process through which these projects are being done. It used to be that we could see, and maybe Prue, you can actually help us with this, we used to be able to see RFPs on everything. We would see when it went out. We would see all of the results that came back were all on the site. Now we have this RFQ process where an RFQ goes out, and then discussions are held offline that never get put on the site, and then someone is picked, and things are changed, but nothing is ever shown on the site. We don't know what's been approved. We don't know what the other bids are. We don't know who else put their qualifications in. And then those people can then go out and bid other things off of them as subcontractors, because those have now been picked as our lead. Like, it's unclear to me, for example, on the Penfield, even though this is not really our remit, but I'll give this an example. Bismarck was chosen through an RFQ process. There were 2 other firms. We have no idea whether they thought that you should tunnel under or whether maybe they thought you should move the building. We don't know because it was never told to us. It was never put on the site. It's just, we have no idea what's happening. And then they're going to go out, and Bismarck's now going to triple bid things, which we don't even know if those will be on the site, although presumably they will. And the last thing we want to do is have to FOIA everything, because that's a pain in the neck. The whole point of the purchasing website was to be transparent and be able to put all of these things on there so that anyone could look and comment. And we used to be able to be part of the process because we could see what the RFP was and we could provide comments. Now we can't even see that. So if we're supposed to be planning, and let me use the language again that was on there, we're supposed to be planning, laying out, constructing, reconstructing, maintaining, supervising, managing. All of these projects we are being closed out of, I feel. And I'm concerned that we need to change the way that these RFPs are done and RFQs are done, to the point where I would like the Flood and Erosion Control Board to have a member present and approve any RFQ or RFP that goes out, and I would like a member of the Flood and Erosion Control Board to be at minimum in a kickoff meeting, or at least invited to the kickoff meeting of any project that has to do with a flood or erosion control structure. It's a lot of extra work.
Becky?
We haven't always been in the kickoff meetings. We were in the Perry's Green kickoff meeting, but I feel like if we're supposed to be doing that for the town, we're clearly not. So we have to decide what role we want to take as a board. Any thoughts or discussion?
Peter?
Becky, is there any overriding preemptive language that provides, let's say, Bill Hurley with ultimate authority to do anything he wants, irrespective of what the language you just read says? Which, it sounds kind of silly, but certainly it's possible. I would hope it's not like that, but did somebody see this coming? And in order to concentrate power with the full-time people, there's some preemptive language somewhere? Because based on what you read, you are absolutely right that we're being cut out of the action. But is there some other language?
I would have to go back and look at what the engineering department says that they're supposed to do, which I can do right now.
Or it could be finance.
Well, it does say within appropriation. We can't willy-nilly spend whatever we want. We have to go through the boards, through the normal process. We're not exempt from that. But once the project is approved through the various boards, we're supposed to be managing and helping supervise and working with the town. I'm not saying instead of. I mean, clearly it's the town engineering department's responsibility to craft the RFPs, but we're supposed to be part of the process.
Yeah, during the time I've been here, and I know anecdotally prior to that, Flood and Erosion always worked in partnership with DPW.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that we included in our request for a revised charter statement, we included the fact that the Director of Public Works would be an ex officio member of this board, trying to cement that relationship that we should have, because we have no budget nor hands except those of the Public Works Department. And we're just asking that they include us in that, so we feel all warm and hugged.
You know, Dick, you just raised a great point. As a way to avoid outright confrontation, how about resurrecting the proposal that somebody from engineering or similar be, as you said, an ex officio member of flood and erosion? Maybe that would
Well, I think that is actually what we had requested as part of the charter that didn't get approved. And once they reconvene a charter commission, we will ask for that again. But I don't think that solves the issue. That just means they'd attend our meetings. I think the bigger issue is are we a partnership with engineering, or are we a afterthought that they have to kind of update every now and then so that we can talk about it in our, in a meeting without having any say?
Right. And when we met with Bill Hurley yesterday, one of the things I asked him was, hey, when you guys are starting a project or putting out an RFP or something, anything to do with coastal or riverine areas, let us in at the ground floor. Give us a copy. Let us sit down with your engineer developing the RFP and just compare notes. Maybe there's some little tidbit, especially since they have a good number of new people there. Maybe there's some tidbits that we have from our history that would help. And he's open to that. As far as I'm concerned, there's no confrontational aspect to this at all. We're just trying to help them do better for the town.
We want some input. That's what we want.
Yeah, we want a chance to
awareness and input.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that, different towns choose to give different levels of authority to their flood and erosion control board. So Westport, interestingly enough, they don't have much coastal authority, but they have to approve all coastal site plans. It has to go before them, in addition to the Conservation Commission. They are an approval body. We right now are not even a referral body or a consulting body. We are an afterthought, which I am not comfortable with. So I think I'd like to.
And you also bring up a good aspect of that, the coastal site plan review. We should also get a heads up anytime a coastal site plan goes to planning and zoning. And because like Don and I have gone to planning and zoning and looked at coastal site plan applications.
I do too. I look at, but I find out about it when it gets put on the agenda.
Yeah.
That's the first time I know that it's even coming before the board, and I will look at all of them. I do look at all of them.
But it's also potentially helpful to look at it when planning and zoning first sees it, because there's an iteration of planning and zoning going back to the applicant saying, hey, this is good, but before we put it on the agenda for plan and zoning board, how about this, how about that?
Yeah. Okay, so if people agree, I'm not sure what the next steps are, other than to write a letter just saying, going forward, we would like flood and erosion to, prior to anything being submitted to purchasing, to put out for RFPs or coastal site plans be submitted for review by the commissions, that we would like the Flood and Erosion Control Board to have a 24-hour review and comment period. And then
on our part, we are committing to make ourselves available for those things.
Yeah, I don't want to hold up anything.
And currently,
I'm very sensitive
right,
to...
currently, Becky and me and Don...
We're retired,
and Peter's retired. Peter has a long commute to get to the town hall, but...
Maybe 48 hours, just to give us a little more time.
But we basically don't have our day job to occupy the majority of our life, so we're available for that. To be made aware.
Yeah, and to be part of scope reviews and kickoff meetings. And maybe possibly interviews of the firm.
I submit, beyond the interview, because they put together an interview team or an evaluation team.
If there's an RFQ, they go and interview them and talk to them. We don't hear that. It's never written up. It's never put on the site. It's never...
Right. What was I going to say? Yeah, as far as not holding up, I agree 100% with that. We don't want to hold up anything which is already a laborious process of approvals and RFPs and RFQs and all that. And I contrast that with Westport. Westport has to approve every coastal site plan or
Right.
every application for something or other.
Yeah.
And if you put it in and their meeting is not for 4 weeks, well, you have another 4 weeks to wait, which
Yeah. So I think it should be
It's not
any one of
fair.
our members has the right to review it. I don't think we should wait for our board to meet. That's not, I
No,
think
no.
that holds things up.
No.
I think 48 hours or 72 hours, whatever the right number is, but something that is a small period of time, and if we don't comment on it, then.
And the
it's considered-
chairperson gets made aware of things that are starting off.
And I put it out to you guys,
Yeah,
say,
and
who
you,
wants
and
to
you
do
make
this,
a judgment
and
as
someone can
to,
decide if
yeah,
they
well,
want
I'll come in tomorrow afternoon, leave them on the counter, you don't have to be there, I'll look
Right.
at the,
and I'll give you any
Is
comments.
this something Bill Hurley can agree upon? Just to be
yeah,
close to
yeah,
Bill Hurley, or?
yeah.
Or does-
Well, I think it's
Well, like
planning,
I said,
I think it's actually planning and zoning too, because if we're
Right.
to look at
It's-
coastal site
yeah,
plans.
it's bill and planning and zoning.
But it's anything to do with flood or erosion projects. So it would only be coastal site plans,
Yeah, coastal site plans, underpass stuff, cleaning out culverts.
Yeah.
I mean,
And you have some good suggestions on a lot of these things
and
too.
that ties into this stormwater authority, okay? The whole stormwater authority is about rainwater. It's not about coastal, it's about rainwater.
Right,
And
which is also
if we-
flooding though.
I'm
Yeah.
saying flooding due to rainwater. And if we have blocked up culverts, that's just gonna back up water somewhere, and
Right.
someone's yard's gonna get flooded. It's fresh water, which is a whole lot better than salt water, but still,
It's still water.
it's flooding. And if
Yeah.
we can have good capacity in our installed conveyances for the stormwater, we're all gonna be better off.
Now, the 4 people on this call, it means that, we're gonna be reviewing a lot more things. Are you comfortable that we have the time to do this within a short period of time? Because again, I do not want to hold up any of these. I don't want this to be a delaying process of any kind. So I think this, I say 48 to 72. I was 24 to 48. Now I'm already giving us an extra day.
There you go. It's mushrooming.
Business days, but it really can't be, we cannot wait for board meetings. It has to be done, independently.
Right,
Are we
which
comfortable?
is why I'm suggesting that, and I'm gonna say, Bill Hurley or Emmeline notifies you. Hey, we just got this coastal site plan for a house on Carlin or something. And okay, fine, and I can swing by, in the
Right.
morning and spend 15 minutes, oh yeah, that's nothing of ours,
Yeah,
not gonna
fine.
be any erosion, whatever. But-
Yeah,
And it could be a soft thing, like, we don't have to sign
no,
along with the 15 other departments that have to sign.
well, maybe we should.
No, it's,
Well, I'm also saying that if we haven't reviewed it within the 48 to 72 hours, then it's considered approved.
sure.
Because I do not,
Sure.
as I said, I don't want this to be a holdup, but, I also want to make sure that, we track when we actually got the notification, because if we get the notification, then that's when the clock starts on the
Right,
48
right.
to 72 hours.
Now, will this take care of the problem, like with that 8-foot plan there in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, we would have flagged that,
We've had input into that.
yeah. I mean, we did have input, we flagged that in November, and they ignored us. I think it had already gone to FEMA at the time we saw it,
Yeah,
though.
it's too late.
I think it was too late,
I think so.
yeah. So is everyone comfortable with,
So,
I'm not even sure who I write this to, I guess the Board of Selectmen.
well, I think you write it to the Board of, the Board of Selectmen, yes, because we are appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah,
So it should go, as the stormwater suggestion went, it should go to the Board of Selectmen.
okay. All right, that's all I had for other business. Did anyone else have other business?
I have nothing.
Sounds good.
Oh, do I need a motion on this?
No, I'm just saying, did we have one? I feel, but maybe it was already.
Yeah, I think we do need a motion on that. I think we need a motion. I make a motion that you write that letter as we've been discussing, and we take it up at next month's meeting.
Okay, so we don't need to send this immediately.
No, I
Yeah.
don't think so. I don't see
I'll
why.
approve the motion.
Second the motion. You're seconding it. Now I'm asking, is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Is any, can I have a vote then? Is anyone in favor of us writing a letter to be reviewed at next month's board meeting, for
approve.
final approval?
I approve.
I
I'll
agree.
say aye.
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 All right.
Don, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right.
We had to make this nicely official.
With that, I have no other business before the board. If anyone else has any other business?
The only call-in person is Peter Wiswell, so no one,
Very good.
No
no members of the public have
here.
any
All right,
comments.
then I adjourn the meeting at 8, I've got 16.
Yeah, and I will stop the recording.